recording. Hello, all, and welcome to the Fantasy and Sci-Fi Fanatics podcast. I'm your host, Daniel Coolbaugh. I have with me for the second time a very special guest, CM Quinn. How are you doing today?
Yeah, pretty good. It's a little bit hot where we are at the moment, so it's peak summer out here, and yeah, we've had a few really scorching hot days. So
I'm envious. We just got I just shoveled yesterday 2 feet of snow, and then my driveway is about 18 feet wide and 38 feet long. So my body, it feels like I got beat up yesterday. So definitely envious.
I think where we hit 42 or 43 Celsius yesterday.
Oh,
so that's
wow.
Well over. I apologize for anyone that's actually really good at conversions, but I think it's over 110 Fahrenheit.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's like Phoenix. I was living in Phoenix, Arizona. That's like that kind of time, that kind of temperature, like that kind of time zone. I do feel I feel better in the heat than the cold. I feel like the cold just drives me nuts. But
look, I'm loving it. I live out in Western Australia now, and it's a very dry desert heat. And I'm loving the heat and I'm, with the exception of where I am at the moment, because I'm visiting some family that are out in the outback.
Cool.
That I've been 3 years because of border restrictions.
Oh yeah.
But where I'm actually living at the moment, it's right smack on the beach, so
that's
can't complain. So some of the best beaches in Australia, and I will stand by that.
Yeah. I've heard that, especially for that area. That's really cool. So really, for this second interview and for our interview for February She Wrote, I was just really interested to get updates on how the book launch went. Things like that. So for that first question, so just give us a little update on how the book launched, how it's been doing, just kind of a quick description of that little process there. I know it's a lot, but how did it go in general?
So the book launch itself went really well. Did pretty solid with pre-orders for both paperback and ebook, and did pretty solid probably for that first month through KDP as well. I knew it was going to slow off because within a few days, prior to the launch, I got the news that I was moving all the way across the country, and that essentially I had 5 weeks to do a move and quarantine and all of that. So that was insane. So I predictably, and again, I'm not really that shocked, my KDP reads and my purchases have really dropped off probably in the past 2 or 3 weeks. But I'm kind of copping that loss, just because I'm in the middle of a move and settling in and all of that. But the launch itself went a little bit better than I was expecting. And in the past week, though, I've actually got my past 2 weeks, I've actually started getting reviews on Amazon. So that's
cool.
It's been exciting. And I've got a couple from people that I don't know, that I've no connection with or asked to ever read the book. So
cool.
To start getting those reviews was pretty exciting.
Yeah. I'm a little bummed because I got it, and then I've been so slammed right now, and it's just been crazy, and the weather hasn't helped. So all my reading time has been devoted to driving and getting the cars out. But you're on my list for February She Wrote. So I got Tilda Holt, and then with Northern Wrath, and then I got yours, and I'll probably have enough time for one more person's for this month. So I'm gonna you're in my lineup for the first 5 for book reviews for our channel. Yeah. I had a lot of people ask for those. So, and I do have to say, I saw a lot of people, a lot of my friends and people who have bought your book, and maybe they haven't read it yet, but they've definitely been, either got it physically. The physical copies just look absolutely amazing, I have to say. It looks awesome on Kindle, but the physical copies just look absolutely amazing on people's hands. So I know I have a couple, I think there were 3 of them. So you should have at least 3 paperback sales. And then, I know a lot of people got them on Kindle. So a lot of people have been sharing them, particularly the last 2 weeks. So I hope that, starts to climb for you, particularly with reviews. So.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm really hoping on, but I'm not too stressed. And I think this year, at least probably for the first 6 months, going to be pretty slow for marketing. So I'm just going to, more just happily just wear a little bit of a loss with sales and stuff. And it's not my main source of income. So I'm not stressing on it. My priority is, because I'm doing training for a new job, and the next 6 months is just going to be disgustingly intense for that. So I've written all my drafts for the year.
Oh, nice.
For the book, for all the books that are due for release this year. So those drafts are done, and really the only stuff that I probably will start to write drafts for this year are books that are due at the end of next year. So I've got like 18 months to do drafts. So
Yeah. That's what I'm
got a
trying to
little
do. I'm
bit
trying
of
to
slack.
stockpile.
Yeah, I say that, but I'm trying not to get too distracted because I know the second I'm like, oh yeah, I've got 18 months. Suddenly I've got 6 months to write a draft, and I'm like, where did it go?
Yeah,
Like what happened with all the time?
Yep. Even a year, I feel like I was like 11 months for draft one. I was like, God, thank God I'm on my own time and not someone else's, because life was just like, nope, this person has COVID. This person got in a car accident, needs help. It was just like it was all over the place. So I definitely
Oh,
understand that feeling. It goes really quickly. So especially 11 months.
oh God. And even like I had dodged getting COVID this whole pandemic. And the second I get on a plane and I go into quarantine and I get my first test, because Western Australia still has a 2-week quarantine requirement coming in, and you have to get a test on day one. And yeah, I got the call like the next day. They're like, yeah, you've got COVID. And I'm like, really?
Oh,
So yeah, but look, I was fine. I had all my
yeah.
shots.
Thank
So
goodness.
I was,
Yeah.
I cruised through it, and
Yeah.
disgusting amount of writing and editing, and my brain was pretty fried at the end of 2
Yeah.
weeks.
That's quite a few people I know, authors that have had it recently, who like had the booster, especially, were just like, whatever, like they just literally just got work done the whole time. And I was like, that must be really nice. Like, but I was like, I also don't want anybody to have COVID. So I was like, I'd rather you just get a vacation. But yeah, it's nice that you got some stuff done there. I'm glad you're feeling better though, that's for sure.
Yeah, heaps better. I mean, like I only had sniffles and a little bit
Yeah.
of cough, and
Oh, that's
I was
good.
pretty
Yeah.
cruised through it. So.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. So I'm glad to know that the launch went well. So what are some things that you think? Obviously, you had a really crazy schedule, but
Yeah.
what are some things that you think worked really well for you? Like, if you had to pick like 3 things, what are 3 things that worked really well for your launch, for you personally?
So the fact that I did, I mean, again, it's sort of very much up to individuals. I did really well with pre-orders. I found pre-orders really helped. Did a little bit of marketing, which again helped quite a bit, and obviously doing podcasts as well. So I think this is now the 3rd one that I've done.
Oh, cool.
Which worked out really well, and just getting out there and actually talking to people, not being afraid to sort of mention it to friends and that, who I kind of all thought that they would just like read, that they would just like buy the book and just like never read it, but
Yeah.
everyone's actually been really good, and everyone's
Cool.
actually reading it and enjoying it. So I was like, yes,
That's awesome.
I'm doing, yeah. So that was, so look, those worked really well. Yeah, look, it was my first one, so it was a bit of a rough launch, but I kind of accepted that, and I was just like, oh, I just need to get my foot in the door, first book out, and I'll worry about trying to perfect a launch later and figure out the kinks. So yeah, getting there.
I do have to say though, just in terms of like things I thought you did well, I absolutely loved your cover. I absolutely loved the blurb. I just felt like, going through, like what we talked about and stuff. And then I went through a little bit of the first few pages. I felt like you have a really good product. So particularly when you're going for book 2, for the trilogy or whatever you do in that world, I just think that we just talked with a couple people the last few weeks about, putting out a really good product, particularly, now, and particularly with the first book. And I'd actually talked to a few people about your book before we got recording. And they had also mentioned, so I do want to mention that 3 different people who don't know you actually did see your book and thought the same thing, that the cover looked amazing, the blurb looked amazing. And they said that they actually had gotten it on Kindle, which I thought was really cool. So I did want to share that with you. So it wasn't just me. So that was really neat. So that was really cool. So I just want to give you that compliment. I haven't had anybody else for a book 1, anybody come on and say that, and they actually mentioned your name before we got recording, which was really cool. You were like one of 2 people that they mentioned, but those people had books out for a while. So for this book launch, I feel like that's a success. So I just wanted to share that with you. So that was really cool. You also, for us, were top 5 for episodes of all time for the amount of people that watched on YouTube, Spotify, and RSS, if you add all 3. And I think you might have edged out recently, where you're number 4 out of 5 out of 33. And this will be
Oh,
episode 34. So just wanted to share that with you. I thought that was really cool. So I hope that helps, with some of the things that went well.
yeah.
I just thought that was cool. So what would you say a couple things, maybe like 2 or 3 things that didn't work as well? Obviously.
I think timing was a huge factor for me, and certainly it's something I'm going into this year with a lot more timing and a lot more of a lead up marketing wise. So like book 2 was already written by draft by November last year. I've done a little bit of developmental work, and it's currently with beta readers at the moment. So,
cool.
The paperback advanced copies I'm hoping to have by really as early as probably July, maybe
Cool.
August at the latest. So the book's probably not coming out till about October-ish, but again, that will largely depend on my very unpredictable schedule this year. So I'm just trying to give myself a lot more months leading up to it. And I guess more I'm looking at sort of marketing strategies and giving myself a little bit more breathing time, and more time just to, time is like the biggest factor at the moment, and just trying to work out the kinks a bit more. And, going into this, I guess, 2 other things would be just planning a little bit neater, and actually just giving myself a lot more breathing room when things inevitably go wrong, or something. I get hiccups in copies and stuff. And obviously I have to sort of budget a little bit better this year, a little bit more carefully, just because I got 2 books coming out from obviously book 2 and book 1 of another series. So
that's exciting.
Just planning, which again is just where I fell short last year, and I knew that. So we're getting there. So I'm prepping a bit more. So it's just a bit frustrating at the moment because my furniture and my car are currently stuck in South Australia because of flood damage to train tracks. So I'm staying with a friend of the family at the moment and all of that, but I don't have an office, which is why if anyone goes to my website at the moment, there's no books available for sale because it's all in storage, and I can't get to any of it. So we did put in an order a couple of weeks ago for some extra stock. So I might have some stock available in late February. So hopefully get some stock back on the website. But I think that's only 10 copies. So if anyone is interested, hopefully do a restock at the end of February, but they'll only be about 10 copies. So get in fast if you want those copies. Otherwise, the remaining 16 copies I had from the initial order last year are available. So again, running pretty low on stock. So I've sold most of the paperbacks off the website last year, which was really good as well.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's super cool. Well, you'll definitely have to keep us in mind. I know you have a crazy schedule, even if it's last minute, with, the next 2 books, like keep us in mind, and, I'll fit you in whenever, works for your schedule, even if it's, on short notice. That way we can at least, help you out. So you can at least plan to come back here, and we'll work whatever schedule works for you at those points.
Well, look, at the end of the day, I'm hoping to release, and I guess this is very, very tentative date, so please no one actually hold me to account on this. So if all the editing and final copying and proofreading and all that goes well for book 2, I might release it as early as September, and then the plan is to release the other book, release that about a month apart. So again,
I'm interested
whenever
to see
I
like how that works for you, because a lot of people have had a lot of success with that. So I'd be really interested to do like a before and after with you. That'd be really cool.
Well, there's not a lot of reason for me to sort of have a large gap between the 2 books because both drafts are done. Book 2 is obviously with some beta readers at the moment and getting really good feedback with that, so that's been really positive. And I'm on probably like the last 5 chapters of the developmental edit for my sapphic fantasy, to hopefully get that to beta readers in the next week. But I keep saying that, but I'll get there. Hopefully finish that. Oh, look, maybe today or tomorrow. because it's like the last 5 chapters are pretty short. It's all like the last action scene, and then yeah, that shouldn't take too long to get through.
yeah.
Mercifully, not a lot of changes are required so much for this. I haven't had to do as much cutting, but also it's a lot smaller. Like book 2 at the moment is at about 165,000 words.
Okay.
So it's about 50,000 words bigger than book 1. And this other project, it's only about 80,000 words, so it's a lot smaller.
Yeah.
So if anyone finds my current series a bit too big for them, I do have a Sapphic series coming out, which is, well, book 1 will be smaller, but knowing me, book 2 for that will probably be bigger.
Yeah. It's a good strategy though. I've seen people do that, like, just to get certain people, because some people, right, are like, oh, I only want to read 350 pages or whatever. And, I know at certain times available to my schedule where I pick those kinds of books and those kinds of schedules. But like, I have seen people specifically do that for marketing, where one series is a little bit bigger, maybe an epic fantasy or a little bit smaller, but still bigger than, your 75,000 words. And then, they go over with another series and they, like kind of like Will White's Cradle, where they're smaller, but, you know what I mean? And then I just think it's interesting to see. And I've heard people where, then you get 2 corners of the market, right? And then they're doing some Audible. So you get one whole market over here with Audible, one for your longer, series. It might be even like fantasy, and then smaller, shorter series of books. Maybe just a few more like, where they even, I've seen some people even do that with the duologies and stuff like that, and then do another set. But yeah, it'd be interesting to see how, your sales go one versus the other.
It's definitely gonna be interesting because both series kind of target very different. Both books do, at the end of the day, both have queer characters. It's just my more Sapphic one is obviously focuses more on the relationship between two female characters. And there is, out of the 4 main cast, like none of them are straight for that one. So that series is much more sort of queer centric as for characters. Whereas my Dragon series does have queer characters, but I wouldn't necessarily call it. Again, it falls more under the category of a high fantasy kind of series, because that's just the nature of the plot and sort of how it all goes. So yeah, it's two very different ones, but really exciting to hopefully get both out this year. And I think it's just a relief that I have both drafts done, and I'm just like, yes.
I give you credit because my work has been killing me, and to the point where I had to stop my draft 2 of my first novel, and I just decided to go to a different idea just to kind of take a break. So I definitely give you credit for all your craziness and getting all those done.
Look, it helped definitely that I wrote most of that Sapphic book. I actually wrote probably about, I wrote the 50,000 words for Nano, so I pretty much wrote majority of the book during Nano.
Oh, nice.
And then I finished it off during when I was in quarantine, and I really only had to write another 25,000 words for that, and I did that over about 3 or 4 days.
Oh, nice.
So I finished a draft off of that, but I'm happy that both are in a fairly good state, and hopefully get book 2 off to Kerry, my editor, in April. I think I've got her booked, so
that's awesome.
Getting there. I'm actually keen to have an office again, so hopefully once my stuff, whenever it arrives, I'll actually be able to have an office set up, bookshelves, and be able to do a bit more TikTok and a bit more filming and a bit more marketing stuff. But at the moment I'm currently just bouncing between houses, and
it's really hard to get in the mood, I would say. Like, I have to, even if I go to my house, I have 3 different spots that if one doesn't work, I'll go to. It's like if my desk doesn't work, I'll go to my office, and then it's over on the side. I removed it, so it's like I have a couple of chairs I like to go into, but my books are all there. So sometimes I look at the books, and then I have we got a brand new couch. It's just so comfortable, and my wife redid everything. It looks great, and it just has she's got like different lighting and stuff now. It's very feng shui, and I've been just clicking away on the keys there. I have 3 different spots I can write in our house, and if I get bored, I can go to one of our coffee shops. I got a spot. So I definitely feel you. When I travel, I feel like I don't get as much done because I don't feel it, I have to be in the spot to feel it. So I definitely understand that. It's hard when you're
I'm definitely giving myself, that's why I'm giving myself at least 12 months to write this 3rd book this year. And even that might be bit of a push, so potentially book 3 might not be out till like probably December again next year, and that just comes down to I will not have as much time to do as much aggressive writing. Like I wrote book 2 in like 3.5 months last year, and most of that was because I just had a lot of spare time with work, and the stars aligned with just having a lot of spare time in general. So I was able to do larger blocks of writing and burn myself out, which is why I didn't touch the book for like a month and a half for editing. So
I feel like so many people like myself can relate to that. So you talked a little bit about what you would do differently next time, like some things like work-wise. Would there be anything in particular, like maybe 1 or 2 things that like you definitely have heard about that you want to try for your next book launch? Like, would you try to promo a couple things differently?
I want to do much more of a lead in, and I had this really good discussion with my editor, who's amazing, because half the time we just spitball ideas, and she can she'll see a few of my little like ranting, struggling, screaming into the void tweets, and she's like, do you need a hand? Do you need to talk about anything? And so we talked about marketing strategies, and she was right. And her daughter sort of came into the conversation in terms of, because my audience who I write with and sort of myself and is much more geared to that younger 20s kind of audience, which is why we discussed that I will get back into TikTok, and what ways in accordance with TikTok's current algorithms would work better. And I've completely cut away Instagram now. I'm probably going to delete that account because
I can't get anything on that one, I swear. Like I've probably gotten like, it says I've gotten 50 followers in like a year, but it's not. It's like I've probably gotten like maybe 15. And it's like I post I'm just over it. I get you. It's like, I don't know, ever since the early summer, they changed the algorithms for that, and Twitter's starting to get it better again, but like I don't know. I guess I don't know what to do on it now. Like I try and I can't get it to work. So I definitely understand that.
So I gave up with Instagram, and I mainly just got really bored and annoyed with the constant, like I'd put a post up and then I would get all these people commenting, but it would be like, oh, let me review your book. And I'm like, okay, that's great. But those ones are like, I would have to pay them.
Yeah.
Which really apparently sets off some red flags with Amazon, because Amazon doesn't like paid reviews. Yep. Like they don't like to find out that the reviews you're on your book are because you have, like, the author has paid someone. So I've steered clear of that. Twitter's actually been weird. I put up 2 weirdly, like, kind of like, I'm supporting indie authors, kind of like, trying to hype other indie authors up. And I put 2 tweets up like that. And they went, I'd say viral for me. I had one, and I think it's still going after like a week, but it's like 1,200 likes. And
that's awesome. See, I can't get past like 10 lately. No matter what I do, I'm just like, it's crazy.
Well, that was because my friend who's also on Twitter, we tested the theory as well. So she pretty much put up a very similar tweet, very similar wording. She's got 3,000 followers, and very little activity. And yet I put up one tweet, and I think at that point I had about 350 followers. And within the space of a week and me doing those 2 tweets, like I'm now at 805 followers.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So I had this weird, didn't translate into a lot of sales, which again, I'm not really on Twitter to market in terms of getting my book for sales, because it's not the platform to produce sales. It's more networking for my sake, and me meeting other authors, and meeting gentlemen, meeting like podcast people like yourself, and sort of.
It's kind of like the water cooler, like of the internet, rather than being people that, like being customers. It's more coworkers, I would say, like in terms of the community, stuff like that.
And certainly through that, and I've joined another Discord server, which was really good, and it's called Publish 2022. And that one is really good. I cannot remember. I actually found it because I followed the creator on TikTok, and they basically created a Discord server to help indie authors be able to self-publish in a year, so to speak. So
Oh,
basically,
that's
they break
cool.
down the year into 4 blocks, and it's like you're outlining, your outlining, writing, editing, and publishing. Um, and there's like 600 people on this like server, and it's really good, and a lot of people to talk to, writing tips.
Cool.
It's probably one of, like, I usually avoid big servers because I find them very overwhelming, but
Yeah.
this one's been pretty good and very friendly and very easy to use. So obviously I'm not really following their schedule because I've obviously wrote all my drafts pretty much at the end of last year. So I'm going into 2022 really just editing, publishing and marketing by the middle of the year. But that's just a timeline that works better for me in terms of the scheme of things. So
Yeah. That's cool though. I would think I told you I was on one, and it was really helpful for the writing sprints in particular. Like
yeah,
a guy and I, and then this one, a female author. Like the three of us just seem to have the same schedule. And I mean, it definitely helped. I don't think I mean, I know I wouldn't have gotten through the middle part, which was I think the hardest part of my draft one for book one. Like I was just slugging away, and this guy was like, "Oh, just come on." And then this other author, she's like, "Yeah, like we've been doing this for a couple weeks now. Like we want 3 people." Because it would give you like the first place, second place, third place trophy kind of thing. And I
yeah.
like stuff like that, like it's fun for me to be the one that wrote
It's
them
Yeah,
up.
and
In the
it's definitely very competitive.
yeah.
One of the servers that I sprint very regularly on, it becomes this little joke between me and one of the other people on there, and she'll come on and I'll be like, "Yeah, I'm doing so well," and she'll come on, and I swear to God, she's like, "Oh, I'm writing really slow at the moment," and there'll be times when she's writing slower, and then there'll be days where she's like, "Yeah, I wrote 9,000 words today." I'm like, I hate you. Like, we'll be doing sprints and I'll be proud that I got like 40 words per minute. And she's like, 55, 60 words per minute. I'm just like, yes. But then there'll be days where I'll write faster than her and we'll sort of compete on word counts and stuff. But it's very friendly and she's absolutely amazing to sprint with.
It's like a
Like
workout
I always,
partner.
like as soon as I jump online and I start sprinting, and I see that she's popped online, I'll like tag her straight away and I'll be like, "You sprinting?" And she's like, fine, give me a
Yeah,
second,
yeah.
she'll get her document. So it's really good. She's amazing to work with. So yeah.
I do recommend that to our audience. Like if you can find somebody, on one of the servers in particular, with the same schedule as you. I told the one guy in particular, I'm like, I want to say his name, so he didn't give me permission, but like I told him, I was like, you were very helpful. And he called me out. I'd be like, "Hey, you're on here. Like, why aren't we sprinting together? Like, let's just do it." And like literally it was probably almost a month. I guess it was probably 6 weeks, 7 weeks. And I mean, it was like every day. Then I'd sprint with him once, he'd win, and I'd just get warmed up, then I'd do the next one. And then he was just like busting through. I think he was at like a 220,000 like epic fantasy, like word fantasy. And I wasn't. And he's like, "Come on." Yeah, I'm just like, and he'd be like on his 40th sprint that day. Like it was just crazy. And I'd be like, "What are you at?" He's like, "Oh, I'm at like 6,500 words." And I'm like, "Okay." I said, "Well, I'll try and sprint with you for an hour and do 4 of them." But yeah, it was definitely like, he was like, I figured he's been on here for a while. And if I was on 3 and having trouble, he'd be like, "Oh, let's just do 1 more." And I'm like, "Well, I have to at least do 4 because he's on like 44 or 45 sprints for the day." So
You're like, I need to at least look like I'm.
yeah, I had to at least look professional and like pretend, like stuff like that. But yeah,
Yeah.
very helpful. Oh man, you said something and somebody was just talking about the other day, and I'm blanking.
We've
Maybe I'll
both
come
gone
back
on
to it.
off on a tangent. Yeah.
Well, I think it's good though because we don't talk like you. I think you're the only. Oh no, okay. So I do have to also say I got 2 people from, I believe, your Discord. So it was Heather Smith and Susanna Evans, and then
Yeah.
somebody else.
We
Somebody else that
convinced Susanna to join it as well. Yeah.
Yeah, someone else. I'm totally like right now. If it's Courtney or who, but somebody else was either in your group or saw yours and then asked me. So I got 3 interviews from yours. So thank you very much. And they were all really helpful, just like yours. So I got 4 great interviews, and then this makes 5 out of just our first one. When you mentioned,
Yeah, we're a busy little server, but like if anyone is listening, and does want to join some really good writing Discord servers, please like hit me up on Twitter because again, I'm probably easier to contact on there. I'm happy to direct you to a few that we're on because we're always happy for for new victims for our readings, and for, you know, a bit of beta reading. And if you need beta readers and stuff, there's a few people that are available for beta reading and stuff, which is really handy, especially if you can't afford. Myself can't afford to pay like 50 people to beta read a book.
Yeah.
So
what's the problem too? Like Michael R. Fletcher was just talking on Wizards, Warriors, and Words, I guess about 2 weeks ago. Well, all those guys were, and then, but like him and I think it was Dirk Ashton both said, like, you know, like beta readers, I think we talked about this too last time, like beta readers are really hard to find, right? Particularly good beta readers, and beta readers you pay aren't always the best. So,
yeah,
you know, like Michael R. Fletcher talked about finding, you know, particular like 3 to 5, you know, solid fans that you could send stuff to, you know, or advanced reader copies, stuff like that, you know, who are always liking your stuff or whatever. And if you can find them and they end up being good beta readers, they had suggested doing that sort of thing rather than paying. And I did hear quite a few people talk the last about 3 weeks or 4 weeks, whatever it's been since then. And I've heard that quite a bit. So I do think that that's an interesting point that you bring up. So I do think that, you know, people would find that very helpful.
I think what's been sort of a little bit of an unexpected, again, I probably should have seen this coming. So I've got really good beta readers, but then obviously with book 2 at the moment, not all of them are available. So I'm kind of working with a little bit smaller of a pool with book 2 at the moment. I've got 2 at the moment that are really good, and they'll do the pre-editor read-throughs and stuff. And then I think some of the others that aren't immediately available should be available, hopefully, post-editor pre-formatting. So hopefully they're available as well. So
yeah.
But I'm going to start reaching out a little bit further to get beta readers for my Sapphic one. So if anyone is interested in reading a Sapphic fantasy, please let me know. We will be looking for beta readers for that one, and hopefully advanced copies for ARC readers for both of them. Because last year when I did the ebook file for book 1, I did it in a KDP file, which is great when you're loading it straight onto Amazon. However, KDP files, you can't give them away like you would an EPUB file for ARC readers. So that's why there was all the ARC readers that I had for book 1 were people that had access to like the pre-formatted copy. We are rectifying that with my formatter at the moment. So we're going back and she's amending that. So we'll have an EPUB version of book 1 to send out for, I wouldn't say ARC readers because it's not really advanced anymore. The book's already out there, but there will be some free copies that'll be available through that as well. Like to be able to read through like Book Funnel and stuff, which is, I'm doing that, and also short stories as part of my newsletter, just to tide people over between book 1 and book 2, because I'm already having people, they're like, when's book 2 available? I'm like, it's still got to get edited. Like it is a process. It's not a quick process.
Wow. So you said 2 great things here. So one, I just want to point out to our audience, because we have some people, you know, right around in between you and me, and maybe getting to that stage, right? And I do think it's important, because I keep forgetting that too, to really get those formats right. Because I had a couple people that tried sending me those, and I don't know what the issue was. I'm guessing that's what it was. And even though I had Kindle, it still wasn't like downloading right. I think one was Jeffrey Spate for Paladin Unbound. So I felt bad. Jeff's like trying to send it to me, and I'm trying to read it as soon as I can. And it was just taking forever to figure out formatting. And I felt really bad because I just know it's my phone, it's an Android. And it's just, for some reason, other people did that to me too. I can't remember who the other 2 authors were. And it just was not working. Christopher G. Brenning. So then he had to send it to me on Google Play, and Nook wasn't working. It's just like a mess. So I know sometimes that, that could really halt the process. So just for people to think about that. But
like huge tip to look at like Book Funnel is really good. Again, it protects authors a little bit more as well, because obviously, we upload it to Book Funnel, and then we provide the readers with like a special code, so then they can then access the file and read from there.
Works a lot better.
So it's so much better. And hopefully once I send out February's newsletter, there'll be the first short story titled The Last Queen. So that will hopefully, if I can get the link sorted, that'll be available so people can read the short story. Like, it's very short. It's only like, people don't freak out, like just because I write ginormous I think this short story is only like 1,600 words. Like it's really
Yeah.
only like 2 scenes.
Don't expect it every time, guys.
So don't panic. It's shorter than you would think. Some of them might be longer. I've got like 5 or 6 planned out between now and sort of when the book is released. So hopefully one a month. Short stories are easy to write.
Yeah.
And now that I have got, I did download a formatters program and paid for it, and it's really good. And it's on my laptop, which is currently out in the living room at the moment. And I can't remember what it's called. I'm actually drawing a blank, but there we go. So my Sapphic one, I'll be formatting myself because this program is like super easy to use.
Oh, that's cool.
Atticus.
Oh, I've
Is
heard
what
of
it's
that.
called.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, that's really cool.
Oh my God. Because I jokingly, I tested the Sapphic file on it and just started making some tweaks and actually having a play with the program. So it cost me, I think, 120 US. Don't quote me specifically on the price, but it was about that. Really good for formatting and super easy to use if you are formatting specifically. But you can actually see what the book looks like in both paperback and your ebook form, because remember, you will need 2 different files if you're going to be publishing through ebook and paperback, because it's 2 different files and it gets laid out differently as well.
I hope the audience is taking notes, because we got a lot of really great, I know maybe it doesn't seem like it because if you're not at that point, but this is a lot of really great stuff that you definitely need to know. So if you're confused and you're not at that spot yet, I know I've had that. I've gone back to some of Lindsay Broker's and Joe Lalo's earlier podcasts, and now that I'm at a certain point, I understand more what they're talking about. So make sure you definitely are saving this one. If you need to for later, come back and then you'll actually understand. It's almost like you understand the alphabet and then come back and learn the language. So, but this is all really good stuff. So
for sure. And again, I'm always open to people DMing me on Twitter and asking questions. I've had a few people reach out and they're just like, I just want to pick your brain about Amazon. Again, I'm not the most experienced, but I'm happy to sort of, help with, little bits and pieces, ISBNs, different file formats and stuff, programs that I found helped me, and then others that were a complete unmitigated disaster, because I was trying to find programs to help me learn formatting, because I'm an absolute pleb at this. I will still retain my formatter for my whole Dragon series because I like what she's done. And just to create that bit of uniformity, and also I do not want to try and replicate what she's done myself.
That's fair.
I don't have Photoshop skills. I don't need that. Like
you got enough to worry about, with the different books and everything, like just the writing part, let alone doing all that stuff. Like it is nicer when you can do it and do it well yourself. But I just think that, I guess, like for our audience, like just be careful of what you're doing at first. I've heard a lot of people recently talk about this, like not trying to do too much yourself. So, obviously it comes down to budget too, right? And who you can find really, good people to help you and stuff like that. But don't be upset if you can't do it yourself, I guess, is the lesson I've learned.
Atticus is really good. I got put onto that because one of the authors I follow on TikTok, she works with a very constrained budget. And she's like, formatters are really good. And obviously I'm looking at doing one myself, and then obviously paying my formatter this year. But it can save you a bit of money. Like formatting for me might be maybe $300 to get both books and files and all pretty and sorted with all the images and
cover, right?
Whereas for my other series, the book isn't broken up into like 4 acts, or 3 acts like book 1 is. So I don't need to do, images for those for those part breaks and stuff. So I can save a bit of money there. And only because I didn't know this. And again, it was in the fine print, but I don't read the fine print as much as I probably should. But if you're doing Amazon files, once the file actually gets over a certain size, you actually get slightly less royalties. So that actually does affect your royalties. I think it's over, again, I can't remember, because an author and I had this discussion, because she's like, oh, your file's fairly big. And I was like, yeah, because it's got a lot of images and maps and stuff in it. So I'm kind of wearing a little bit of a loss, like not much, like think it's about 40 cents or something that I'm copying a loss. Again, that adds up.
Yeah.
I'm not selling a stupid amount of books, so it's not really a huge worry at the moment, but just be aware that the size of your ebook file can sometimes affect with your percentage of royalties that you do get.
I'm so glad you said that, because I had not heard that, and I listened to a lot of stuff.
Yeah, I did not know until like 2 weeks ago. My book's been out a few months, and I'm just like, yes. Because if you go onto Amazon and you can actually see the listing, it's like, oh, this file is like slightly larger and it may take longer to download. Yeah, so that's why it says that. Like it is a big file. Like she's got a lot of images and stuff, and beautifully high resolution sort of images on the ebook. So I'm just gonna cop the loss with that one.
It's a
Not
really great
overly
point, though, like, for especially, just anybody like thinking about, like having to eat that cost versus putting out what type of product you want to put out. So I think that's like, I haven't heard that. So I'm so glad you said that, because now it's gonna be something that I think about and talk about, because that's like, I have not heard that. So that's like crazy. That's a huge part of your planning process right there, right? For anything you're putting through there. I mean, that's crazy to me that I haven't heard that.
Well, we only picked that up because my other friend, because she's launching a publishing house and a book and a bunch of other things this year. And so they're like, her and her partner are really into like the legal side at the moment and reading the fine print and stuff.
Yeah.
So that's how she like picked up on it. And again, it's not like Amazon's trying to hide it. It's in the fine print.
Oh,
like
yeah,
it's
yeah.
there for
It's
them
great to know,
read.
though.
It's just like how many people actually read terms and conditions. I'm really bad at that. So you learn something new every day, and that was just something that I learned quite recently, that sort of imparting on that to other people.
Yeah. No, thank you. Like that's, again, I think that, in terms like me, right? Like I was going to add a couple of different things to different pages and stuff. And, just a few images here and there. And now I'm thinking that maybe I'll wait to get trilogy 1 out and then maybe add some things after I made a little bit more for trilogy 2. But yeah, I think that's just an amazing thing to know for planning, especially for our audience, because you never know, again, like they might have, more maps or images or something. Like somebody like Sean Crow, I'm thinking, right? Like where he has a lot of images in his. So I'm actually curious to ask him now, if he knows that even. Like he might, he's smarter than I am. I know that for a fact. So hopefully,
like if you're able to compress the file enough where it's smaller,
yeah.
then it gets into all tech stuff, and there might be ways I could compress the file more, and I've got enough things on my plate to worry about. So I'm just kind of rolling with the punches on that one. So
I just think it's great. Like, it's a great thing to know for planning. I feel like I'm really glad that you brought it up. So that's definitely something I'm going to be thinking about. So I think a lot of people are going to be on the same boat. Oh man, we got. It's funny. I feel like we got more out of now than questions last time. But again, it's with the book launch, right, versus doing the pre-work, and it's why I wanted you to come back really around this time, to kind of see how things were. I feel like a lot of people learn a lot of different things, or things come to light, or I'm a teacher, so reflecting for me is always a big thing. I feel like it's a helpful learning tool. I was hoping we could apply it today to your book launch process, and I feel like it's helped a lot. So it's definitely helped me out a lot. So I hope our audience gets a lot from it. I'm just really curious. This is a really quick question for you. So, you said that, you had written these, the rest of these books out a little bit further in advance. Are you still inspired for the writing every day? Do you feel like you need to get something down? Has it been a little harder? How do you just keep that drive alive to keep writing and not just fall down flat and take
I think at the moment, I'm not doing a lot of draft working. So, I'm not writing in the way that as aggressively as I was last year. So I'm more in the editing phase at the moment. But I think because I've got that timeline and I've got more of a schedule that I'm keeping to a lot more strictly this year, and I know how busy things are going to get. So I'm kind of trying to punch out as much as I can, as early as I can. And
Smart.
getting to that point. But in terms of drive, like I haven't lost the spark to write book 3. I think once I finish just kind of taking it baby steps. So once I finish book the Sapphic one, and that's with beta readers, I'll probably jump back onto book 3's draft, and hopefully just try and start getting chapters out, because I know that one's going to be a big book as well. I reckon, and I always hate trying to guess how many words, because I thought book 2 would be about 130,000 words, and it ended up about 40,000 words bigger. So I'm going to say tentatively about 180 to 200,000 words for book 3 as well. Like, I think it's just going to be a much bigger book as well. A lot more mysteries to address, a lot more sort of battles, and the books just keep getting bigger and bigger in scope. And I'm just like, yes, just getting there.
Yeah. Well, I do have to say though, like in terms of that, like I do know a lot of people who said the same thing as you, and have released a bigger second book. And I'm thinking of like Dirk Ashton in particular. Christopher G. Writing is another one. He was telling me, it's like, man, this second one seems like it's going to be really big. But again, I think a lot of people have, from what I've been listening to and reading and talking to people, it seems like the book 2 syndrome comes out because, you try to get them the same size and you're trying to fit too much, and then you can't do enough. So I do think a lot more people that I've seen, over the last year and a half, since the pandemic, I think have excelled when they're not afraid to make that second indie book bigger than the first one. And then, be able to tie up. That's what's nice, right, about being indie is you can make them fluctuated and nobody seems to care. They just want to read your story and finish it out.
Like, I've had it in my mind that, and I suspect it'll be the same with my Sci-Fi series as well, that my book ones are always going to be probably the smaller of my series, and then the books will progressively get bigger and bigger. I think book 3 and book 4 probably won't have too much of a word difference. Again, this is me just kind of loosely how I planned it in my head, so I think both should have probably a fairly similar word count. It was just book 1 was like more of a physical journey across a location, whereas book 2, whilst it's all sort of occurring in the same city and it's much more condensed locality wise, there's a lot more events, battles, there's a lot more fighting, a lot more attacks, a lot more mysteries. So there's a lot more to unpack in book 2, which was really fun to write. I had a lot of fun picking apart and doing research on city sieges.
Cool. When you say siege, you got me. Like, I'm a historian, so I love sieges.
Well, book 2 essentially is just one giant siege, and like Act 4, which is like 20 chapters, it's essentially the last big battle. So there's a lot happening in this book. There's a lot, just general events, a lot of fighting, a lot of inner sort of storylines that are all, inevitably sort of connect up at the end. I just realized. So 90% of the point of views are all in the city, and then there's one point of view that's literally across an ocean and on a random ass island. So there's 2 locations, but predominantly it's all in the one city with the siege and battles. It's a lot more, I will say, if you're going into book 2, it's a lot more, there's a lot more violence, a little bit more violent, a little bit more sort of darker themes that are sort of a little bit more explored in this one. And it is a little bit more mature in terms of sort of some spicier scenes than book 1, because book 1 was very mild in a lot of those respects. Book 2 definitely ups the ante on that, which I knew, and again, that's why I'm not writing for 14-year-olds.
Yeah.
Against people that write YA fiction, this is just not what this series is for, so to speak. So
no, I feel like that makes total sense. You got me really intrigued now with just saying that with the point of views. Now I'm like, I got to know. Like, I have to get through book 1, and now I got it. I like, just, that's a cool writing point. Like, it's interesting. I have to figure it out now. Like, I have to get to that point. So that's really cool. I like that. Like, I know already I'm gonna like that a lot. Is there anything lastly that you want your readers or your audience to know? Maybe about you as an author, maybe something you've learned over this book launch process. Anything new that we didn't get to last time?
I think we've pretty much covered all the lessons that I've learned over the past few months. And obviously over the next few months, I'm going to be learning more lessons. But if anyone is interested with the writing process, with where I'm at, if you have finished book one and you're looking for something to tide you over, to learn a bit more about the world and some of the characters, there will, sign up for my newsletter. There are more short stories and
Cool.
kind of feeding into the lore a little bit more. So none of these short stories will be taking place during the events of the books. I would say probably read book one first before you start reading these short stories. Not that they're spoilers. A lot of them are set hundreds of years before the event of book one. But if you've read book one, you kind of go into it and you're like, oh, I know who this person and this person is, because these short stories aren't going to be spending a lot of time with reminding the reader specifically who this is. A lot of them are written with the assumption that you have read book one and that you're tiding over. And that's just how I kind of bit the bullet and decided that I was going to be doing those short stories.
I mean, that makes sense. You get people that are already there, for book one generally, and then it's to tie over. So that makes sense from a writer and reader standpoint. Yeah.
Like for instance, The Last Queen, which is the title of the first short story, does follow The Last Queen of the Dragoneers, which obviously it's not a spoiler. The start of book one literally shows, like, you learn about the ruins. And it's very clear in the start of book one that the Dragoneers are gone. Their kingdom, fell to ruins. So some of these short stories are going to be about the final days, the final months, because obviously the diary entries all through book one track a lot of those events. And these short stories will expand on that. So you'll actually get more interactions between certain characters that are some characters that might potentially be alive in in book one. Others, their fates are unclear. So, without giving anything away. So it's more just exploring the world and giving people a little bit more context. And to be honest, writing short stories is fun and easy to do. So it kills a bit of time. And it means I can procrastinate on editing.
Yeah, it's fair. It's nice though that you get people, that little in between. I think that's a great advertising ploy right there, to keep them in your world and keep them coming back, because they're gonna be like, I need to know what happens. And particularly if they like your characters or your world building, things like that, I think it just keeps coming back, keeps them coming back to you, which I think is a great marketing strategy in itself.
Yeah.
So I haven't thought of that. So I'm actually going to be thinking about that a lot more. So
it's super easy to do, because writing like a short scene, or you've written all this backstory and all this wonderful lore, and sometimes it's just easier to write a 2,000 word short story of that particular event physically occurring, and to actually get your readers to really immerse themselves into that moment. And it does help sort of connect them more to your world.
No, I think it makes total sense. I think it's a fabulous idea. I know Rob J. Hayes was talking about doing that with the Mortal Techniques. So in between a couple books, like he was like had I'm gonna totally blank on what the guy's name was, but one of his characters, he did a short story. Everybody loved it so much, he just did it in place of another book, and he was trying to hold them off. And then they're like, oh, we want this person. Oh, Century Blade. They're like, we want a whole book now about Century Blade, because that was such a cool short story. So he's like, it worked because it kept him in, before the next book. But he's like, now I got to go try and write a whole nother book based off of this character that everybody loved. So I was like, that's a really good idea. So you're the second person that I've heard that from within the last week. So I think that's a great strategy, just to keep people coming back to your writing and in your world.
Well, look, before anyone does sort of reads the short stories and was like, yeah, we want more, there is, and it's very loosely, very tentative. Like, I think it's only got a couple of pages of notes and stuff. There is a spin-off series, like a prequel spin-off series that I'm toying with, the Dragoneer series. But that is, I'm not even going to start writing that until the first series is done, and potentially, so don't expect the first book of that to be out for another 4 years maybe. So, but keep it in the back of your mind before I get a few emails going, can you write this story? Because I have plans. I have so many plans. I just have very little.
as I said to my wife last night, she's like, "How you doing?" I was at my computer with this urban fantasy thing, like I guess historical fantasy. And I'm just like, "I'm doing well." She's like, "You don't have writer's block?" I'm like, "No." I'm like, "I don't have enough time to write everything down." I'm like, I usually just go from one to another if something's blocking me. So I'm like, definitely understand that feeling. There's too much to write, not enough time in the day or in a year. So
Yeah.
definitely understand that. All right. Well, I again really, really want to thank you for coming on with us again. I learned a lot the first time. We had such a great conversation. I was really glad that we could have another one, particularly after your book launch, and kind of look at some of those things we talked about that you were going to do, and thinking about doing. And it was nice to see, what you said about what worked and what didn't work. And you had a lot of really great stuff to say in terms of just things for me and myself. So that's why I'm doing this. First of all, it's for the audience, but it's also for me. So I'm also learning in the process. So you definitely gave me a
Yeah.
lot to think about. This is actually one that I'm going to save, come back to, particularly hopefully next summer when I'm ready to publish a couple of books and things like that, and get them good to go. So thank you so much. I learned a lot. It was awesome. Again, keep us in mind for the future, for either book, both book. If you ever just want to come by and, you want to scream to us in the void or whatever, feel free to come on and do that. We'll chit chat about whatever. But again, thank you so much for coming on, and again, being accommodating with your schedule. And again, I hope that, everybody that I've seen, including myself, who has bought the book, goes and please do reviews. I just want to mention again, for everybody, that it's so, so important, particularly for indie authors. And I've had a lot of friends recently, like yourself, who have released books, and I review every book that I read. So I really would love people, if you're listening, please go and pick up whoever's book, and hopefully everybody's that we've had so far on the show. And
Yeah.
please make sure you review and tell your friends, okay? Because it'd be awesome to help people with sales and things like that. But I want to, wish you luck with the rest of, the book sales. I hope it spikes back up like Will White's did for the Cradle series, and then you'll just have to write more short stories in the meantime and get the rest of the books out there. I'd love to see a prequel series too. You just already, from what you've told me, it just to me sounds very interesting. And what I've read of the first book so far sounds really great. So sounds very immersive, and that's the kind of world that I like. So I want to tell you again, have a good rest of the day. I know it's Sunday there, and hope you get some rest and relaxation, get some good writing done, and hopefully we will see you soon in the future. Okay.
Okay.
Perfect.
Bye.
You have a good rest of the day, and I will talk to you later. Bye.
Bye.